Thanks, Bo, for that introduction. You know, I'm forever grateful to two Rotarians. One is past President Bo Lynn, and the second one is past President Emeritus Phyllis Mouton. So I appreciate both of you because you sponsored me into this wonderful organization 15 years ago. And so throughout that journey, I've met a lot of great people. A lot of great people have mentored me, like Richard Lipsey and Donna Siraj. So it's such a great organization. I'm just glad to be part of it. I'm thankful for several people here, several guests. It takes a village to grow a business, and all of you are part of my village. So from my bankers to the community leaders to my team who is the backbone of everything we do. They take my crazy ideas and run with it. So I'm always grateful for them. And of course, most grateful for my wife, who's been on this journey with me before I started, before I came up with this crazy idea to start a company. And she's still today my biggest cheerleader. I remember a quote that Warren Buffett said, you know, one of the greatest decisions you're going to make in life is the person you marry. And I'm grateful I got that decision right. Chapter 1 of my life, as I call it, was a poor kid growing up in Opelousas, Louisiana, as Bo said. Grew up in what I call the hood. It was a physically tough environment, abusive environment, alcoholic environment. I had drugs all around me. Crack cocaine was the popular drug back then, among many other drugs. And although I thought it'd be a way to make fast money, my mom put the fear of God in me. And I knew that the consequences of having to deal with my mom wouldn't surpass the money that I would potentially make doing those things. So I looked into becoming an entrepreneur, not because I wanted to be, but it was a means of survival. My mom, my mother couldn't give me much. We were very poor, but she gave me one thing that has been the greatest gift for me, and she gave me a good spiritual foundation. And without that, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So I'm forever grateful to my mom. So we grew up in North Opelousas, called the North End, and it was a shotgun house. Many of you may not know, especially the young kids from Thrive Academy, may not know what a shotgun house is. But it's a house where you walk on the front porch, and then there's the living room. In our case, the bedroom, kitchen, and that was it. We had a little side piece was off the bedroom, the bathroom was, where I had two siblings, where we all used the same restroom, of course. This was a picture of my house growing up. So it's sort of blurry, but it's old. But that was the house that I grew up in for the majority of my life. And you know, the interesting thing was, one day I came home. We had a big floor model TV on the floor. And so back then, if you had a floor model TV, you made it. Right? It was a big TV just on the floor. And so we had a little small 13-inch TV on top of it. And so my stepdad, I think he found the floor model on the side of the road somewhere and decided to bring it home. So I'm excited, you know, coming home from school, and the floor model TV didn't have a picture. The 13-inch TV didn't have sound. So we had to have them both on to be able to watch TV. It would have been nice if it was the other way around, where we had this big picture on this floor model TV. But that was my humble beginnings. My sister and my brother and myself slept in the same bed in the living room, so our bedroom was in the living room. And my stepdad, we were in the hood, but he was a country boy. So he thought it'd be a great idea to raise pigs and goose and chickens, and we had all kinds of animals in our yard. My responsibility as a young kid was to go around and get the slop. And for those of you who don't know what slop is, it's the leftover food that people don't eat. So in the projects, which was right next to the neighborhood that I live in, the individuals that lived there would have a big bucket. They would hang the bucket of leftover food on the back porch. And I would go with my little red wagon and pick up the slop to feed our pigs. And lo and behold, if that slop ever fell and wasted, I was in serious trouble. So that was quite an interesting time for me, with having to go through and with my peers, kids in the neighborhood, looking at me pulling a wagon of slop. So I became an entrepreneur, as I said, at a very young age. My first, what I call hustle. My first hustle was aluminum cans. So back then you can sell aluminum cans and make a little money. I heard, yep, so there's a few people that did that as well. So the guy to the left, the house to the left of ours, was a guy named Mr. Joe. So Mr. Joe taught me how to pick aluminum cans. So you go in the trash and you get these aluminum cans, you smash them, make them a little bit heavier, bring them to the recycling place, and then you sell them. Well, I did that for a little while, but that was not sustainable because, first of all, I don't have a vehicle to bring it to the recycling place, and I'm not carrying bags of cans down the street. So did that for a little while. That was my first hustle. My second hustle was Coke bottles. Remember, you can sell Coke bottles back in the day? So I'll get the Coke bottles, and you get a nickel or a dime, bring them to the corner store. And so I made a few dollars, well, a few nickels back then on that. And then I got a newspaper route. So this one guy with this big station wagon would come through our neighborhood and deliver newspapers to people who could afford newspapers. And so I asked him one day, can I help you, throw newspapers? And so he said, talk to your parents, and they're okay, I'll let you come. I'm 12 years old. And so there was a technique to this. So this guy would drive the station wagon. The station wagon is rolling, like 5-10 miles an hour. And he was rolling the papers, putting them in the bag, and just throwing them out the window, and all while driving. So he put me in the back seat, and my job was to roll them as well, put them in his plastic bag, and throw them. And I just was not fast enough. I was throwing them in the ditch. I tried to throw it on the other side of the car. It would land on the top of the car, and I wasn't very good at that. And so I realized that very quickly that's not for me. And so my next hustle was cutting lawn. So we lived on the north end of Opelousas, like I said, across town. There's a place called Indian Hills, very affluent area. And so I decided I would go and ask the people who needed their lawn cut to cut the grass. So I walk around the neighborhood, and anybody that had grass a decent height, say, hey, knock on the door, can I cut your grass? And whenever they said yes, my next question was, can I borrow your lawnmower? I didn't have a lawnmower, but I figured out really quick at a young age that there's this thing called partnership, right? So they had the tools, but didn't want to do the job. I didn't have the tools, but I wanted to do the job. So I made a few bucks, $5 and $10 there in Indian Hills neighborhood, just cutting grass. And then, so you fast forward to age 17, I finally got my first W-2 job. Popeye's Fried Chicken. My title was batter man. Batter man is, hey, that's not an easy job. Now, batter man is a technique to it. It's the guy that dips the chicken in the flour and throws it in the grease. So you had to flick your wrist a little certain way to get it there. Love that job, batter man. But what I loved more was I was able to provide for my family. I was able to help support my family and giving them a little bit of income. So that's where I was getting ready to graduate high school, become age 18. Most of my friends were going to college. I wanted to go to college, but I needed money more importantly. And so I decided I was going to join the Air Force. So I graduated high school May, and July 7th, I was raising my hand in the Air Force. And that's where chapter 2 of my life begins. So my first duty assignment, I had this big bright idea that I was going to join the Air Force, going to travel the world. First duty assignment, I'm right back in Louisiana at Barksdale Air Force Base. It all worked out. It was all part of God's plan. I still, as Bill mentioned, I was able to do some tours overseas and things like that. But so I realized that when joining the military, when you got one stripe on your arm, that means you're one paycheck back from poverty. And so I realized that I need to get a part-time job. So I went all over Shreveport, Bossier, because I'm stationed at Barstow, trying to find a job. Nobody would hire me. I wore my uniform, and people say, you're overqualified, underqualified. And so I remember very vividly that I talking to myself, so this is going to be my last stop if I don't get a job. It's not meant to be. And so I walk into this convenience store, Circle K, there was one right outside of the gate of the base. And I asked this guy, are you hiring? His name was Richard Sicardo. So Richard immediately said, yes, I'm hiring. And he hired me the very same day. And I loved working for Circle K, so I was a third shift. Here I'm as a third shift cashier. I mean, you can't get any lower than a third shift cashier. So I'm still in the military, I'm active duty, but I was a fireman, so we worked 24 on, 24 off. So I could work on my off days and make extra money. And so Richard gave me opportunity, taught me the ropes, and allowed me to become an assistant manager with Circle K. But Richard gave me something much more valuable. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. He was the first individual outside of my mom that told me that there is more to life. I can do more, I can be more. And so he mentored me for a few years. I grew up the corporate chain, became assistant store manager. Then I got to my 6-year mark in the Air Force. And I said, okay, I've been traveling a lot, been going places that I didn't really want to go, but it was a requirement. But I said, I still want to be part of the military. So I decided I was going to leave active duty and join the Air Force Reserves. So I joined the Air Force Reserves, and then Circle K hired me as a store manager. So I became a store manager for 2 years, did that, love it. My district manager came to me and said, hey, would you think about becoming a district manager trainee? And I said, yeah. So I became a district manager trainee, and he said, the only caveat is that you have to move wherever we want you to move. And I'm like, I just left the military, having to deal with this. And so I accepted and loved it. So May of '99, I get moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And so I had 8 stores that was given to me. 7 of the 8 stores was on Plank Road. So I'm like, Lord, I grew up in the hood, and now I'm, back in this environment. But that was, again, it was all part of God's plan, where I really was able to help some people in that environment, really help them. And so grew up the corporate ladder, became district manager. After district manager, became sales manager, became director of operations, and I had 105 stores. So from a third shift cashier to a director of operations. Not part of my plan. And so the Circle K came to me and said, hey, we want to promote you to vice president, but you have to relocate to Kansas City, Missouri. And at the time, my oldest daughter, was a senior in high school at Baton Rouge High. And so I was kind of, do I want to take her out of high school? And so I had a conversation with my wife, and then one of my spiritual advisors said something to me that I will never forget. And he said, Craig, God will never give you success at the cost of your family. And that stuck with me forever. So anytime I think about opportunities now, I always think about God will never give me success at the sacrifice of my family. And that's been a driving force for me over the years. So 2010 rolls around, I've grown the corporate ladder. Now I turned down this opportunity with Circle K. And many of you know in business, when you turn down a promotion opportunity, it may not come back again. So it was very risky. I tried for multiple years afterwards to grow and get other opportunities, and every door was closed. So 2010, I decided I've been with Circle K almost 20 years by that time. been in the military almost 20 years. What does the next chapter of my life look like? And so I started a parking lot striping company. People say, why parking lot striping? Well, for 3 reasons. Number 1, most businesses have a parking lot. Number 2, paint is very inexpensive, which means my profit margin is going to be pretty high. And the third reason is because the risk factor is very low. The worst I'm going to do is paint a crooked line in your parking lot. So in fact, Bo Lynn was one of the people when he owned Baton Rouge Beer Agency, gave us our first opportunity, one of our first opportunities to stripe a parking lot, his parking lot. And I sincerely apologize, both of those crooked lines.
He did a good job.
So we continued to do that, and then outside of parking lot striping, I decided I was going to start knocking on shopping center doors. So striped the parking lot at Seagram Plaza Shopping Center where the Super Target is on Seagram Lane. And then they were absentee owners. They were owned a company out of Atlanta, and they said, "Hey, can you paint the building?" I said, "Yes." "Can you remove signs off the building when the tenant moves out?" "Yes." Everything they asked me to do, I was like, "Yes." And I'm a one-man show. Just trying to figure this thing out. And so if you need a building sign removed, call an electrician, get them to take it. They didn't care. They just wanted somebody to take care of it. And so I continued to do that. Same scenario, Hammond Air Shopping Center. Same thing on Old Hammond Airline. And they asked me to continue to do more. I said, I have something, I got a niche here. And so I started cold calling shopping centers, got more business. And then the company that owned the Hammond Air Shopping Center was called Kimco Realty. And Kimco said, "Craig, can you take 8 shopping centers in Denver, Colorado?" And I said, "Yes." So, don't know how I'm gonna figure this one out. So I took them. There was Denver, Aurora, and the surrounding areas, and I hired a project manager in that market. And anytime we had calls or things needed to be done, I would call him. He would find the people to do it, and we rock and roll. So we grew into Texas, Oklahoma City. We had shopping centers, and it was a great ride in that aspect. So I decided I had enough money to leave Circle K, 2014. I had $60,000 in stocks, had some revenue coming in, and so July 3rd of 2014, I retired from Circle K. November of that same year, I landed one contract with Banqueray Business Center, the old Bon Marché Mall, janitorial contract for 3 times my salary. And so that was something that really catapulted me to another level. The interesting thing with that was the person that gave me the opportunity, he was a Russian guy, Ilya Smirnov, never forget him. And Ilya called me to his office and he said, "Craig, I'm not sure why I'm giving you this opportunity. You're the least experienced, you have the highest price, but I'm gonna give it to you. How is it that God took an Italian guy with Circle K, who mentored me, brings a guy from Russia to give me this great opportunity?" And so that's how when I look back on my life, that's what I think about how, God was preparing me this whole time, had his hand on me. With Circle K and Air Force, it was simultaneous. And I tell people all the time, military taught me how to be mission focused. Focus on the mission. And the corporate America taught me how to run a business at a high level. And that's where I decided to take off and go in full force with Genesis 360. So Genesis 360 started as parking lot striping, got into maintenance. So historically, we've had 4 divisions: construction, ground maintenance, building maintenance, IT services. And latter part of last year, leadership, we had some discussion and said, what are we good at? What is our core competency? And so what we decided to do was look at this was me leaving Circle K. So we decided that our core competency is management. That's what we do best. And so we came up with these 6 pillars of service. And they're pretty self-explanatory. This is what we do. We had construction, ground maintenance, building maintenance, and IT services before. People say, what does IT fit in with maintenance construction? Well, my degree is in IT, and I did IT work in the Air Force. So all of them are self-explanatory. The integrated vendor management one, it's really something that's, we have some phenomenal software for it that really helps businesses. So for example, there's hospitals that have all these maintenance contracts. So all these maintenance vendors, supply vendors. Well, we onboard all those vendors under Genesis 360. They integrate under us. And then we manage all of them. We invoice the customer. So the hospital is receiving one invoices from one company, and that's Genesis 360. So immediately we made them more efficient because they're in the business of saving lives. That's not their core competency to deal with maintenance. That's what we do. And so we have the software for it. So if you are interested in learning more, see me afterwards, or go www. No, I'm just kidding. No, but see me afterwards. So anyway, so Genesis 360 got into the federal space, and I'll end real quick. Genesis 360 got into federal space in 2017, and even today, 70%, 75% of our revenue is in the federal space. It's been a great opportunities for us to scale and grow, and then of course we're growing here locally as well. So what's the plan for Genesis 360? My vision, my assignment by God is to grow this company. The 10-year plan, which I started in 2023, is to grow Genesis 360 from a multi-million-dollar company to at least $1 billion company by 2033. That's what I'm called to do. That's what most of my energy goes into. So I'm blessed to have a team that supports the vision, and grateful to have clients that really give us great support as well. So we have time for questions, Mr. President.
Questions? We have mics. One over there. We don't have microphones. Go ahead.
You got somebody. What would you say was...
Greg, how did you get from enlisting in the Air Force and become a commissioned officer?
Yeah, so the question is how to get from being enlisted to becoming a commissioned officer. So I did 15 years active duty, 15 years in enlisted. And quite honestly, it was somebody that came to me and said, I think you should become an officer. And so I got my degree in IT and then applied to become an officer, went to officer training school, and retired as a captain. So 15 years enlisted, 10 years as an officer. Next question.
So what would you say to a young person who says, I want to be my own boss, I have this idea, what do I need to do next? What one piece of advice would you give them?
If you could repeat the question.
What would be one piece of advice that I would give somebody that says, I want to be my own boss? Pray, pray, pray really hard. Running a business is difficult. It seems easy on the outside, but it's difficult. Now you have to realize what your core skill is. Like, are you a revenue generator? Are you the marketing guy? Or what are you really good at? And those things that you're not good at, you better build a team around it to be successful. So I know what I'm good at, and I try to stay in that lane. But hiring other people that's much better than me at the other stuff. So the short answer is pray and then make sure it's the right decision. Life is a journey, man. Life is a journey, and I never thought I would be where I am today, but I just enjoy the ride. George?
Craig, it's an inspiring story. I'm inspired every time I hear it. How do you find that balance, and what do you do to relax?
Oh, man. I should wait till my wife leaves and ask her about relaxing. She says I don't relax enough. So I think there's no true balance where it's 50-50. There are times when you're neck deep into the business, trying to grow, scale, do certain things. Then there's times when you just really focus on the family. And so I think it's what Jeff Bezos said, it's the harmony. Life is not the balance, it's the work-life harmony, where things are good at home, and then keeping things good in the business. Things good in the business, keeping things good at home. And it's the harmony of those two things.
Last question, if we got one.
Last question?
Right there.
Yep.
So, Craig, first of all, thank you for what you've done for our community. As I've watched your business grow, I've also watched your commitment to Baton Rouge and to the other areas y'all are in. Is there some piece of your childhood, because you don't just become philanthropic. You don't wake up one day and go, I'm going to give away a bunch of money, or I'm going to really engage in my community.
Yeah.
Where did that come from with you?
A lot of people have poured into me over the years, not just financially, but just poured into me. And what I do as running Genesis 360, it's not about me. I say this all the time. Whenever you're a business owner, it's never about you. It's always about the other people, right? So it's just something that I've always been a giver, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's been church. I'm a calculated giver now, but I'm still a very big giver, and because I've been given so much. I've been given so much over the years. So thank you.
You did great.